Welcome back everyone to Self-Serving Skillet. We are doing episode 2 of $3 meals. So in this episode, we're going to be using a lot of the same ingredients that we used in the first episode of $3 meals, which is absolutely fine because number one, it's going to taste very different. And number two, you sort of buy these things in bulk to get the price down. And this way it makes sense to buy a lot of potatoes or a lot of cheese. I personally buy as much as makes sense for my household size. And that's really how you're gonna get this down from a $4.5 meal to a $3 meal. So let's get started. So we are gonna use this big burrito tortilla that cost me about 50 cents. It came in a pack of 12, very nice price. And with that, we're gonna use about 50 cents worth of potatoes, about 60 cents worth of eggs, 40 cents worth of sour cream, and $1 worth of cheese. Alongside that, I'm going to use some spices and some hot sauce, salt, maybe a little bit of pepper, but I'm not really gonna count those because all in all, I'm probably gonna use about 5, maybe 10 cents worth of all of that stuff all together. We're gonna use a little oil too. Now, these oven potatoes take a little bit of time, but it's very worth it. The other day I had a breakfast burrito where the hash browns inside weren't crispy at all. They were just potato. And as a result, it was all right. So I want this breakfast burrito to have just super crunchy potatoes. So how do we get them to stay crispy? Well, we've got to boil them first. I'm gonna peel these skins off of these potatoes, and what I really like to do if I'm gonna peel the skins off is I'm not gonna wash them first. I can wash them afterwards, after I'm done peeling them, but I find that washing them makes them slippery when they're already actually a little slippery. Make sure to keep your fingers out of the way of this peeler. I had an injury a couple years ago where I was garnishing a drink, and let's see if you can still see this scar on the end of my finger here. I don't know if you can see that. It's right there. We go. Yeah, veggie peeler right into my finger right there, and it wasn't pleasant. Keep your fingers safe. So after all is said and done, we want to slice them into, I'm gonna go for wedges, but you can really cut these into any shape that you'd like. The point is that we get them into some boiling water and we roast them in the oven with oil. So into my saucepan, they go covered with cool water. I'm gonna cover the whole thing and bring it to a boil. When it's boiling, I'm gonna take the cover off. We're gonna put about a teaspoon and a half in this water. The more baking soda that you put in, the better it will break up the potato, but also the more it will taste like baking soda. If we limit it to a teaspoon, we don't really taste the baking soda and we get all of that nice crunchy potato goodness. And what that baking soda is gonna do is it's going to make the water a little alkaline and make that flesh on the potatoes fall apart a little bit, and that's what's gonna turn super crispy in the oven. I've also heard of doing this with vinegar. Now, vinegar does the opposite. It holds it together so that you can boil them for longer. I've tried both, and I'm not sure which one I like more. I think you can get a little crispier with the baking soda. I think you can get it a little more baked with the vinegar. So when those are done, I boiled mine for about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, but you want to do it as long as you can. A good tip from, I think it was Jamie Oliver, said, do it as long as you dare to. And that's really all it is. You want them to look like they're gonna fall apart, but take them out carefully and drain them carefully so that they don't fall apart. But if they do, that's fine too. They'll just get done a little sooner. They'll be a little bit more crispy. When those are sufficiently falling apart, I'm going to put them on a baking sheet in a single layer and put some oil on them. I'm using avocado oil. You want a sort of a neutral tasting, high smoke point oil. This is going to 450-degree Fahrenheit oven. That's about 220 Celsius for about 20 minutes at a time, flipping in between, and they're done when they look done and when they crunch like crazy. I've had this last for about an hour and a half, all the way down to about 40 minutes, depending on the size and the shape that you cut them in, and also where you're getting your potatoes from. I've experienced different results with seemingly similar potatoes, and that's the only thing I can assume is that they're from different parts of the world. Different soils are giving them different nutrients and their different densities, and they had a different upbringing. Now that those potatoes are sort of on their final descent, we're gonna prepare the rest of our ingredients. I have here $1 worth of cheese that I'm just gonna shred up, and what we're gonna do with this cheese is we're gonna put it in a bowl with a couple of spices, and today I'm gonna use some cumin and chili powder. I find the two complement each other very nicely, and this is a great way to just add value to your burrito, or really anything that you're eating. You see, when you season as you go, when you season every different element, you're gonna get a better flavor profile all around. It's gonna be much more worth it to put all of these different ingredients in, because you're gonna be able to taste all of them. It could be the difference between, oh, thanks for the burrito, Mom, and wow, you're gonna have to make this again. I want a little cumin in there. Maybe that's even too much. Just a little spoon of cumin, as well as probably the same amount of chili powder, and then I'm just gonna put enough salt in so that I can taste it, because cheese already has a fair amount of salt. We'll crack and beat these eggs to really get ahead of the ball here, because when our roasted potatoes come out, we have some time. They're not gonna get soggy right away, but we don't want to dilly-dally either. We don't want them to sit around for half an hour while we get everything else prepared. We want it ready so we can build our burrito. The other thing I'm going to do to prepare is to add a little bit of tapatio to this sour cream, and we'll just mix that around. Potatoes are done. I'm gonna get myself a mixing bowl, put a little paper towel down in the bottom of that to drain my roasted potatoes and get those all down in there. It's too hot. That's the hazard sometimes of needing to talk while I'm cooking, is that sometimes I'm just holding this, this hot thing for way too long, and it burns through my oven mitt. All right, while they're hot, pinch of salt. I'm going with smoked paprika, because it's delicious, and garlic. So that should be pretty delicious. Little garlic, and then we just pull the paper towel out. This drains some oil there, and we're left with some nice fries. Let's build our burrito. Before I assemble, I need to make my eggs. So I'm gonna turn my nonstick skillet on, and I'm gonna go pretty hot with this. I want just a little bit of butter, just a little spoon of butter, which is 1/3 of a big spoon. Do that math. And I want to wait until it's bubbling. It's bubbling in the pan, and then my eggs will be ready to go in. Now, the difference between this method that I'm going to show you and what I've showed you in the past is that what I've showed you in the past was a very slow, deliberate folding of the egg and it's one way to create some nice fluffy layers. But what I'm going to show you here is also a way to create a nice fluffy egg, and you have to crank up that heat and just stir it until it's ready pretty much, and then get it off the heat, and all of the water in the egg starts to boil, and then you end up getting a lot of air and bubbles in your egg. All right, we're starting to smoke a little bit. I'm gonna go in with my egg, scrape out this little bit here, and that's almost too much time that I'm giving this, and there we go. And I'm just gonna flip that part over to get all of it kind of in some even cooking time. The great thing about this is that it doesn't take too long at all. Scrambled eggs. Get our tortilla pan onto a little bit of a more medium heat. So a tortilla is a lot of saturated fat, and that will soften up when you heat it. But if you heat it too much, it's going to start to cook the flour that's next to it, and that's when it gets all crispy, which sometimes is an effect we want, but when we're rolling a burrito, it may not be the effect that we want. So I'm just gonna wait until this pan is hot enough to make water dance on the surface. It's not quite there yet. We need to see, instead of it sizzling off, I want to see the little beads of water dance across the surface. That's more like it. All right. This tortilla is going on. And it's a little bit bigger than the pan, but I'm not going to really worry about it. I just want enough of it to get pliable enough to work with. And when I flip it over, that's where my cheese is going. All right, warm enough to work with. Most of my cheese, not all. I'm just gonna sprinkle in here, and the rest I will use as sort of an adhesive to close it up. I want all my potatoes nice and in a line here. My seasoned sour cream is going down over the top of these. It's just about time to take it off the heat, but luckily I just have one element to go back on, which is the egg. Burrito comes off the heat. Heat goes off. Heat goes away. So I have more room to work. There we go. And we're gonna go over. We're gonna tuck under, and I can already feel that being very crispy. Some of those potatoes are actually poking out, which is a little bit crispier than I had intended, even though I intended it to be very crispy. There we go. And come in, and here's where I'm gonna use the rest of my cheese to sort of seal it off. All right, and if we leave that there, it's gonna start to melt that cheese, but I like to put it right back on the pan without any heat under it. The pan has enough residual heat to melt that cheese. We're gonna get that great breakfast burrito. All right, rant time, but not on YouTube. It's come to my attention that, you know, I do tend to go off on tangents and rants and everything like that, but for the most part, I'm going to try to split those off from the main segment and put them on the Patreon versions of these videos. So now my Patreon subscribers will get extra content in probably not every episode, but most episodes. So head over to patreon.com/self-serving skillet. The link is in the description below. For as little as $1 a month, you can view all of my new content ad-free. This looks and smells just absolutely amazing. Those potatoes I can feel are still crunchy in there. Yeah, I can smell all of the spices, and it has me in great anticipation for all of these different ingredients. And this has been sitting here for a little bit of time, long enough for me to take some pictures of it, plate it up nicely for YouTube. Listen to how crunchy these potatoes are, having been covered in sauce for like 3-4 minutes. Right? That really hits the spot. Those spices in the cheese are a little bit different than the spices on the potato. It's a little bit different than the Tapatio sour cream. If you have a suggestion for the next $3 serving segment of Self-Serving Skillet, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel and ding the bell so you know whenever I post a new video, videos go up Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Time. Get in the kitchen, make yourself something amazing. Don't forget to let your hunger be your inspiration. And if you want to see that first $3 servings, I'm gonna leave that right up here. But if you want to see more ways to make an egg, I'm gonna leave you a playlist right over here. That's just such an insane crunch for what it is.